What if I told you that your attachment style affects even the way you show up in the bedroom? And so I want to remind you of the 4 different attachment styles, which are secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful avoidant, or sometimes it's called disorganized. I have 4 videos on these different styles. I highly recommend that you watch them. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it means, and I'm going to just go briefly through what it means to be securely attached. Typically that means somebody who's had a caregiver, because it starts in early childhood, a caregiver who's been responsive to them, that when they cried, their needs were met, that they knew that they could depend on someone. And so oftentimes these individuals, failure doesn't derail them. They tend to trust their partners, but they also tend to have high levels of self-esteem, and they tend to trust themselves. And so that's what secure attachment looks like. And more of your anxious or preoccupied attachment is somebody who, and I'm just doing this in kind of a nutshell. You guys will have to go back and look at those earlier videos. But somebody who has an anxious preoccupied attachment, they're more likely going to have low self-esteem, and they're going to have a high belief in their partner. They're going to believe that their partner is so wonderful, and they will doubt their own worth within the relationship. And remember, guys, this all starts in childhood. It makes sense, right? It starts in childhood because this primary relationship that you have with your caregiver, parent, whomever is your primary caregiver, that interaction sends signals to the brain, which tells the brain, okay, I know that if I do this, if I cry, this person is going to respond to me, which has us feeling like, oh, if I do this, my needs are going to be met. Or if I do this, that my needs aren't going to be met, which is more of the avoidant, or they're going to be met, but only met sometimes, that's more the anxious. And then the last, which is more of the disorganized, or what we call fearful avoidant. They sometimes will have an attachment style that is, oftentimes we see it in borderline personality disorder. These folks, and not all, but these folks have had some history of emotional, physical abuse or sexual abuse, or all 3. And it doesn't mean that if you've had some abuse that you're going to look like the fearful avoidant, but we often feel like that's the through line, and the research supports that. So that person is at times anxiously seeking attachment, and then other times rejecting it. And so these styles show up in the way that you are intimate. And so in general, and I'll just go through generally what happens with each of these styles, and then what we'll do is we'll go through it in a video in each. And I'll make those videos short, but they'll be directly depending on your attachment style. So the person who's anxiously attached, they tend to be seeking out more partners. They tend to be a little more sexually active because they're using sex as a way to meet their needs. The person who's avoidant tends to be a lot more detached. Sex is more of kind of a means to an end, or sometimes they actually don't even connect to the sexual act, and they will tend to have maybe less partners, but are more likely to be seeking out sexual gratification through porn, etc. And the person who is fearfully or disorganized, their attachment style can be pretty darn volatile, with them at times being hypersexual and at other times being dismissive, and sometimes can be a little bit aloof or distant towards their partners. And so it has this quality of going back and forth. And of course, the securely attached person, it is as it sounds. They are really comfortable exploring new areas of their sexual experience. They tend to not have as many partners. Oh, and by the way, the disorganized tends to have more sexual addiction. I forgot to say that. And so those securely attached people have less partners, but more satisfying sex lives, less likely to have addiction, insecurity issues in the bedroom, because they have a high trust of themselves and they have a trust of their partner. I'm going to go into these in more detail in shorter videos. I highly recommend that you watch these because it'll give you an idea of how you're showing up in the bedroom. I'm Chantel Cohen, and I help you become one again.